All right, everything seems to be working. Good morning, everybody. Manny Garavito here, and I am back for another episode of Mornings with Manny. It's good to be back. It's good to be using Zoom for the very first time, especially hosting something that is, because I feel like this is a great new tool that's been around for a very long time. And now that we've gotten this big shock of virtual communication, this tool is better than ever. I recently invested in the stock recently, thinking that it's going to be a hit, and surely enough, it was. Good morning, Bruno. Good morning, Andres. Thank you so much for joining. So the topic today that I'd like to discuss is digital marketing. So I've been doing this for about 6 years of my life, but I was good at it the last 2.5 years. So I had to hit the ground running as soon as I realized that I was onto something. And what's great about marketing is that there's not just one way to do it. There's various ways to do it. And then the more you have insights on how other people are doing it, you can add that to how you're doing it. And then marketing eventually becomes like this big hub of information. And sometimes when too much information is coming your way, you might be overwhelmed or you don't know where to start, or some people would suggest something that isn't fit or customized to what your business is doing. And there's a lot of obstacles to get involved in digital marketing. You know, most people would say social media, other people would say paid advertising, others would say blogging or video. And so the reason why I decided to focus on this particular presentation is to give you a compact sense on how I do marketing. And I looked at the model and I asked myself, how can I make this as sophisticated and easy to understand as possible, as well as being able to fit on just about any kind of business. So I'm going to show you my screen here. I made a presentation for all those that are viewing. And just to give you a background on my show, Mornings with Manny, let me know on the chat, guys, if you could see my screen, okay? All right. Let's see here. Perfect. All right. Andre says yes. Bruno, let me know if you can see it. Well, I mean, if Andre can see it, I'm sure you can see it too, Bruno. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. So Mornings with Manny is a show I did. I think I began doing this in late 2017. And the entire purpose of Mornings with Manny is a show where I try to come off as a friend that relays information, somebody that researches something or is really passionate about something and sees the value in it and how it could benefit other people. And the reason why Mornings with Manny kind of took a break for a while is because I was so busy working on the virtual comedy club that I started here in Miami that I just didn't have time to be on top of it as much. I still learned a few things. I still self-educated myself, but eventually the show just kind of fizzled out. Now I see the opportunity once again on how information can be exchanged between people, especially during times like these, because we're all trying to play catch up and trying to be as social as possible. Even though we're physically distanced, I think now we can practice on how to be intimate socially in the virtual space. So this is my attempt at doing that. And the topic we're going to discuss is, once again, digital marketing, business owners in particular, because I feel, again, that this model is beneficial to anybody. So one of the things that I always like to ask people when they're in the marketing field is, what is marketing to you? How do you see marketing? What mental models have you come up with on your own? Or who do you follow? Who inspires you? And just overall, what's your outtake on it? And you get a lot of different explanations where marketing can end up being just in quotation marks because it means different things to different people. And I got a few definitions here to kind of highlight some things where marketing is an activity for some, it's communication for others, it's delivery. So Investopedia says that marketing refers to all activities a company does to, I can't see here, to promote and sell products or services to consumers, according to Investopedia. Another definition is marketing is the activity, set of institutions and processes for creating, communicating, delivering, and exchanging offerings that have value for customers, clients, partners, and society at large. So to make this easier, I just want to highlight these particular words. So I'd say from these two examples, activities, communicating, and delivering are the three most important words on these examples of a definition of marketing. And this, again, is my perspective. This is how I see it. And I believe the reason why these are the most important things is because if I ask you, those that are attending, what is marketing? You might say things like it's promotions or sales or advertising. And again, my take would be if someone asked me what is marketing, is communication. But let's go a little deeper, because even though this is just surface definitions of marketing, I think there's a lot more insights from the real pros that have been doing this for decades or have been studying it for many, many years, more expertise than I have. And so those insights, when they compact it in something as simple as a quote like this by Peter Drucker, an author of a book called The Effective Executive, the aim of marketing is to know and understand the customer so well the product or service fits them and sells itself. Andre says, marketing is strategies and measure, methods and feelings. I like that, Andre. So we're going to get into feelings, which is very interesting that you said that, because that's exactly where I'm going to take this. But I just want to focus kind of like to peel off a couple of layers here before we get to the main thing. But yes, feelings especially is the only reason I believe marketing works. So what Peter Drucker is trying to say here, or at least what I think he's trying to say here, is when you come up with a product, the product itself markets itself. So, you know, a great example of that would be, I remember when the Sony Ericsson came out. I believe that was the name of it. It was called the Sony Ericsson, and it was a little phone like this big, and it kind of looked like a little ice cream bar. And I remember when I first got that, the reason I got it was because not only was it a phone, but it was also an MP3 player. But the thing is, the MP3 player didn't have a headset jack. It had a weird adapter, and then that adapter turned into a head jack. And the sound was a bit off, and the screen was very clunky. It was kind of like the first prototype of a phone and an MP3 player. And I thought to myself, this was amazing. Like, I wish this can work properly, because this would be great. And then lo and behold, the iPhone first came out. And when the iPhone came out, and they kind of just went above and beyond, because they didn't just give you a phone and an MP3 player. They gave you touchscreen, internet access, apps, emails. It was all in there, all in one. Where once it hit the market, everybody was like, yes, this is exactly the next level. And everybody agreed. And when you touch people at that certain point where, like, logically it makes sense, emotionally it makes sense, it just becomes this big innovation where the product essentially just sold itself. People would line up outside of a store for hours, maybe even days, to get the first few issues of these phones. And when you look at this quote and you look at that example, it makes sense. However, to go even further, Steve Jobs, all right, the guy that helped invent the iPhone, his quote is, you can't just ask customers what they want and then try to give it to them, because by the time you get it built, they'll want something new. Now, for me, this is fascinating, because, you know, one of the best people in business as an author and consultant would say the product is the marketing. But someone like Steve Jobs would say, you can't just ask them what they want, because by the time you have it built, they already want something new. And, you know, us as human beings, we're extremely hedonistic. And I know that marketers, they don't just go for exactly what you say you want. They find the hidden motivation or the hidden values on what you say you want. So Bruno, I don't know if you recall in the presentation I did over at the Improv for LaughWise, there's a book called Spin Selling by Neil Rackham. And that book, what it does is reveal hidden values or benefits that the customer didn't even know they had, like the real root of a reason. So with these two examples, I'd like to present this concept that is, all marketing efforts eventually become traditional. because there's always new ways of communication and it's always happening. You know, you see it all the time where, you know, a new social media would come out, or a new feature would come out, or a CRM program, or targeting on Facebook. And there's just so many ways to communicate that it's inevitable that it will always be evolving and changing. And the world is becoming more and more connected because of that. Everybody is able to communicate with each other, especially now that we're in quarantine. Everybody wants to communicate and stay in touch and, you know, not miss out on anything. And, you know, and so when you look at, for example, the comic above, you know, people used to carve things into rocks, or they would mass publicate, or then email came out, and, you know, then Twitter. And the more communication channels are opening up, the smaller the messaging is getting. So again, the evolution of the phone, things are getting, it's like you could see the technology and communication just speeding up so quickly that what is happening in the marketing world is we're living in a world where it's over communicated. Everybody wants to talk to you. Everybody says, you know, come join my Zoom, check out this blog, look at this post. I'm selling this. This is my service. This is my product, you know, so on and so forth. And then people, you know, technology allowed us to communicate to people, but more and more people are being taken aback because of how marketing and communication is evolving together. And even though I thought initially, well, I still do, that marketing is communication, but it's two separate things going in the same direction. Kind of like, you know, when you look at a graph and you see two arrows, I think it's like that. Like it's going the same way, but it's going up and down. So like the more communication channels go up, the less effective marketing is getting, and vice versa. So in the era that we're living in now, especially with the shock that the quarantine is now that it has occurred, is that people are seeking solutions, but they're researching now. They're kind of, I feel like they're now looking that there's options rather than what is being pushed on them. They want to research and they want to see, you know, what if I go down this path and follow this person, or what if I decided to trust or give loyalty to this brand? And eventually, once they start researching all of their options, they're going to come up with a more optimal decision on what they really want. So I'd say that marketing will go deeper and deeper into human emotion, just like you mentioned, Andres, or human interaction, or kind of like that human touch where it's like, this is not a bot. This is not an ad trying to sell me anything. This is someone trying to connect with me, and it resonates to them. It's kind of like a communication that cuts through the clutter that the over-communicated world is creating. So if you have the solution, it's every business owner's responsibility to communicate that solution effectively to their intended customer. You would actually be doing yourself a disservice if you don't go out of your way to find a new way to talk to someone that is seeking your solution. So one of the things that I'd like to point out here is with these two concepts of marketing and of innovation and how products and services sell themselves, you know, if you look at Peter Drucker's philosophy, you know, broken down, it says, know what your customers really want. And if you look at Steve Jobs' philosophies, your customers don't know what they really want. So even though these are two polarizing concepts on marketing, it's a very meta or bird's eye view way of seeing differing concepts of marketing and allowing them to come together to make an effective communication. Because if you know that your customers really want something that you can offer, but you also keep in mind that your customers don't know what they really want, imagine the dissonance that occurs and the gap that happens, and how you can fill that gap based on what you do in marketing. So my take on digital marketing with these two concepts in mind, again, there's many ways to look at marketing, but this is my take on it. So the 4 basic functions is to dynamically communicate with your potential customers online. Now, what I mean by dynamic is it's always changing, it's always evolving, it's trying to keep up to date. I believe a lot of marketers kind of follow like a traditional way to market something, and they kind of just stay stuck doing it that way while the world is just moving ahead. So they're staying behind. So they're thinking, maybe if I just put more advertising dollars, or if I spend more, or if I really ramp up promotions, if you're not changing or evolving to what the market is telling you, you're missing out on a lot of opportunities. You're missing out on a lot of new clients. So for a strong online foundation, you need to communicate your solutions. By the way, this is the first of the four. I forgot to number these. So let's say one of the four. Okay. Communicate your solutions, make your business easy to find, verifiable, legitimacy, and relevant. So I don't know how many times you guys have ever tried to research a company or research someone that is offering a service and you can't find them anywhere on the internet, and you can't verify what other people are saying, what their thoughts are, what their methods are, or even a review, a blog post, a Twitter update, a Facebook update, whatever it may be. They don't come off relevant or legitimate. And these things are very important to have online because it's your foundation. It's kind of like, you know, when you look up a word in a dictionary and you get the result, it's the same thing. If someone looks up your business or you, they want to see a result so they can read the definition so that it's verifiable. That way you can kind of cut through the clutter of saying like, no, this guy is legit, this guy is real, and this is his information available for me to verify. The second step, once you have a strong online foundation, and just to go a little bit further on the online foundation, an example would be Google My Business posting, a website, a social media presence that is active. I think that's very important too, in my opinion, because whenever I research a company and they haven't posted anything since like August of 2019, I kind of feel like they fell off. So a strong social media presence and a good website is a good start. Second is create quality content. And this is how you keep in touch. This is how you polish communication. So keeping in touch is kind of like you saying, I'm still working to communicate with the people that have your problems because I have the solution. This is how passionate I am about providing you these solutions. Polishing your communication, what I mean by that is the more content you release, the more feedback you get, and the more you're able to polish the way you communicate your solutions, the more you're able to show that you have an authority and that you're pretty much unstoppable in trying to communicate with your intended customer. Consistency is also important because rather than just publishing one thing and then just forgetting about it, being consistent also shows that you're putting an effort to provide solutions to people. And, you know, on the back end, driving traffic to your online foundation is also an essential part of creating quality content. You want to reach out where people see what you're talking about. They see your angle, the way you think. And if it resonates to them, they want to find out more about you. They want to find out if you're the real deal. So having a website and social media presence allows them to figure that out. And again, get responses. You want to see if people are liking it or sharing it or if people are writing comments. Thirdly, is you want to experiment. You want to measure and you want to get feedback. So you kind of have to be a scientist when it comes to marketing. You have to see what works and what doesn't, because marketing is also, it's kind of like you're trying to be psychic. You know, you're trying to see like what do you need that I can provide you so that we can do business? What are you looking for? And how can I figure it out better than anyone else that's providing the same thing that I'm providing? And if you see what works and what doesn't, that allows you to kind of like gain more access to what it is that people want based on your solutions. And the more insights you have in what works and what doesn't, the better your communication will be. Because you want to align your solution with the values that your customers have. So I'll give you an example. This has happened in my virtual comedy club. The beginning, when I first started promoting my business on Instagram, I would do just that, promote. I would just write, you know, come check out this show. We're doing the show at this bar. This is the time. This is the address, so on and so forth. And I got a couple of likes, nothing too, nothing too extravagant. And then I pivoted. I was like, okay, if I'm a virtual comedy club, how can I show what they want? And, people have different schedules. So maybe you promoting one show isn't going to be adequate for them. So I was like, okay, let me just try to make you laugh. Let me just give you a laugh or a little funny humor thing that you can think about on a rough day. So when you're stuck in traffic or you're at work and you have some free time and you just need a little bit of information, let me just write you something that's funny instead. Rather than promoting, I'm just going to write you something funny. And then I started writing memes. And then when I started writing memes, they kind of just took off. And you want to align that. So you want to align what you're posting with what you do. And you want to find that sweet spot where it's like, this is what your customers' values are, and this is what you're offering. And you want to find that spot in the middle where you both can benefit. You know what I mean? So the memes would then be a buildup to a promotion. I'll give you an example. I write a meme in the morning, a meme in the afternoon. So like something at 9 when people wake up and they go to work, they get something funny from my page. Then at 5 p.m. when they get out of work, they get another thing funny from my page. And then at 7 o'clock, I say, by the way, if you want to laugh with other people in a public space, come check out this show. And it kind of seems like I'd say I was getting permission to give them a promotion. So what you want to do is you want to align that. You want to figure it out. Again, figure out what they want and they don't want, and then calibrate your compass of where your business is headed. So you want to make sure that what you're putting out there is taking you in the direction. I know a lot of people that put out content for the sake of engagement, and they can't sell anything on their page because it's almost like it's uncalled for. I forget the example, but I read somewhere that if someone had 1 million followers and then they posted something for sale and no one bought it, and you have 1 million followers and no one bought it because you didn't position yourself where you're capable of doing that. You have to calibrate what you're posting with your intentions. So again, you could find that sweet spot where it's acceptable for you to promote or put your product or tell people about your services. And again, you always have to be, of course, valuable as possible. Yes, Andres, give value, absolutely. But value is so vague. And just to go on a tangent here real quick, Andre, when it comes to value, everybody values things differently. I value this coffee mug that has a $100 bill on it, but you may value a coffee mug that has a photo of your cat on it. I value these posters here because my face is on it, but you might think these posters aren't worth anything because your face isn't on it. So valuing is a better definition. And I learned this through a mastermind that I'm in. And I think the person that came up with that is, forget his name, but he's a very wise older man. And he says that valuing is a better way to see what value really is, because the action of valuing is what makes people be motivated to take action, And so, Andre, like you were saying, emotions is a big value for people. Like when people feel a rush of emotion, they just act for the most part. I mean, some people are in control, but for the most part, when people feel an emotion, they act. And so valuing, the verb itself is very important to keep in mind rather than the word value. All right, and the fourth step is optimize and automate. So this one is kind of, picture like a cycle, guys. The same way we see this right here, picture these 4 functions like a cycle, because it all comes back, okay? So optimize and automate is automate what works. Automate what's already effective in your business when it comes to marketing. Automate, for example, is like delegating, maybe even planning an entire week's or a month's worth of content in advance. So in that way you post it on a certain schedule. And then once you figure out, how to automate what already works, you can then have some free time to figure out what else works. Like what else can I do to make this communication or this marketing campaign better? So I recently wrote an article. I did two things. I sent out an invitation to a mastermind, and I posted some ads, but the mastermind had a price tag on it. So because of the price tag, people were like, well, we don't know who you are and what you're about and so on and so forth. So what I did was then I wrote a blog post about what the future of Miami might be. And then I posted some ads for that. And that got a big response from people. So I'm like, okay, so let's go ahead and reverse. Let me write a very valuable blog post before I even make an offer to show people who I am. So with that insight, what I did was I reversed it. I started giving the stuff for free, like the blog for free, the insights for free, the information for free. And then at the end of that piece of information, I say, okay, by the way, if you want to have more discussions about the future of Miami and where it's going, check out these events. And then the click rate went right through the roof. So I was like, okay, that works. Now I want to find out what else works. Write one blog post a day, what else works? And then you want to add that to your campaign. And you still want to be experimenting in this part. You still, as you're finding out what else works, experiment a little bit. You know, if you wrote a blog post and it's all words, get into podcasting or make a video, or, you know, if you send out a newsletter, Bruno, I know you have a newsletter. If you send out a newsletter, you can then go and make a blog post out of that newsletter, or vice versa. So you want to do a lot of experimenting. And then once you find out a really good, juicy new piece of thing that you can do, you can then add that to your online foundation. So the automation becomes the online foundation. Your website is part of the online foundation. Your content is part of the online foundation. And it just becomes this cycle of just you showing people that you have authority in your industry, that you know what you're talking about, and it aligns with what people want and what you want. And that's my take on digital marketing and how it all comes together. So to summarize, we're evolving very quickly. Communication is speeding up too fast. So you always have to be changing. People want a human touch. These two concepts of know what your customers really want and your customers don't know what they really want. These two contrasting concepts gives you a big, juicy space for you to work within a boundary in your marketing. Okay. You have to put your part and your customers have to put their part, and it just becomes this dance of content and value giving and figuring it out and giving them solutions. And then the 4 functions to dynamically communicate with your customers is strong online foundation, create quality content, experiment, measure, and give feedback, and get feedback, optimize, and automate. So with these 4 things, the cycle can continue and your marketing can get better and better and better based on what your audience wants and what you want. Let me go ahead and do an action step here so that we can put better things into perspective. So let's put, here's what we can do. So one is have a good website and a strong social media profile. And I say choose one, because every time I start a new business, I try doing all of them at once. And let me tell you, that's not a good idea. Like you try to do Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and then you're trying to podcast, and then it's too much. I think the best thing you can do is focus on one and go really hard on that one social media channels. I would recommend a social media channel that disperses the content. So, you know, this doesn't apply for all businesses, but with my virtual comedy club, I like Instagram because Instagram also shoots it out to Facebook, Twitter, and yeah, I think it's just Facebook and Twitter. Second step is make an outline. Of what you want and what you don't want. And then on another side of the piece of paper, write what your customer wants and what they don't want. Okay, so in that way you can kind of configure that sweet spot of communicating through content. The third action step I'd say would be, let's see. One good piece of content a week. I'd say that's a good start. One really good deep work piece of content a week, and throwing it out there, shooting it out into the ether, and see what people are saying about it or how they're responding, or if it's getting likes or comments or sharing or anything like that, just to kind of get an idea if the second action step is in the right path. And then the fourth would be figure it out. No, I'm just kidding. The fourth would be if it works, keep it and do it again, and then figure out what else to do. All right, so those are your action steps. If you want to take my advice or my mental model for the four basic functions of marketing, I would say these 4 steps is a good way to kind of get started in a very easy and understandable way. Because again, these 4, this mental model that I've described to you here is something that I wanted to be as accessible as possible to anybody in any industry. And again, this is the most simplistic way that I can do it. Of course, there's many other ways, again, but we don't want to get too techie. We don't want to get to the point where it's too deep and it's too dense where you can't get started. I think these 4 action steps allows you to get started in digital marketing in a way where you're not overwhelmed with information. You kind of can just get started right now. Okay. So for those that are present, I know we already talked, but for those that are watching later on after I post this on YouTube and on Facebook, you can talk to me about anything. I realize that now that the quarantine is currently in effect, that the more I'm able to socialize with people, the more I'm able to talk to people, the better it is for my projects, because I don't want to be holed up in this garage and just start working on another online project all day long. I think talking to people would be very beneficial for the both of us. And you could talk to me about anything. You can talk to me about business or lifestyle or art or, any problems you're having whatsoever. Let me figure out what it is that you want, because MiamiNetworking.com is specifically made for people with different lifestyles. I don't want it just to be for professionals or just business people. I want it to be for anybody that is looking to get to the next level through the channel that is networking with other people and bringing people together. Okay, we were supposed to have 2 other panelists, but apparently they weren't able to make it. Let me see here. No, they don't seem to be on. Let me see. All right, if you guys have any questions, you can always type it in on the chat. If not, then we should be good to go. Andre, Bruno, thank you so much for being here, guys. Really appreciate you taking the time to see my little presentation here. I like this stuff, man. I really have become a fan of Zoom to the point where I invested in this entire thing. You're welcome, Andre. You're very welcome. Let me see. Andre, I added you to the panel. Do you have any questions? You want to use your mic? Bruno, you could use your mic. Any questions whatsoever? Any comments, feedback? All right. All right, guys. Well, once again, thank you for being here. We'll go ahead and call it. And we're going to be doing this every single Monday. All right, 10:30 a.m. And it used to be 8:30 a.m., but I like 10:30 a.m. because I can get breakfast first and serve myself some coffee and maybe even join you on a cup, All right, so I'll see you next Monday. Send me any emails. And if you have anyone that you know that can benefit from this, go ahead and send them my link, all right? I'll see you guys on the next episode. Thank you for watching this video from MiamiNetworking.com. If you did enjoy this video, do give us a like, leave us a comment, and subscribe to our channel. Also, if you're seeking to make a connection with the people in Miami that want to make a difference, visit MiamiNetworking.com and start your free profile today.